Today I'm talking about the AuDHD arts of self-sabotage because I have an awful tendency to self-sabotage, and it's something that I've done throughout my whole life. And I was diagnosed as autistic last year, and I had another diagnosis of ADHD this year. So I'm currently in the process of trying to make sense of my own behaviours and my own traits to try and ascertain whether they fall under autism or ADHD. And I think self-sabotage is something that leans more into ADHD. But I certainly think some of my behaviours have been informed by my autism. So this video is really trying to, look a little bit further into self-sabotage through the lens of being autistic and ADHD, because it's not something I've seen a huge amount of discussion on on YouTube. But yeah, it's something that I've certainly always struggled with. Self-sabotage behaviours can be either conscious or unconscious, and it's really about undermining our ability to complete tasks or achieve personal goals. And I'd really love to see more research in self-sabotaging behaviours in ADHD and autistic people, but it is thought that people with ADHD in particular are often plagued by self-sabotaging or negative internal thoughts. So I think there are very many ways in which we can self-sabotage. So just going to run through a few ways that, I've been thinking of this week. Firstly, imposter syndrome. And I don't know if it's possible actually to receive a diagnosis later in life or to become aware that we're autistic or ADHD and not have a sort of crisis in confidence about it, really, because it's just such massive information, isn't it? We suddenly realise that we've had a disability for all of our lives, but we've just not been aware of it because we've found different ways to cope, and invariably this has come at a cost to ourselves. So yeah, it's just really difficult to take this information on board, and it certainly has been for myself. And I have discussed imposter syndrome in a couple of videos now, but certainly this is a form of self-sabotage. And I think imposter syndrome is rooted in internalized ableism, because we really struggle to see ourselves as disabled because we don't meet our idea of being disabled, or the stereotypical ideas that we've formed throughout our lives through, I don't know, information in the media, etc. So there's kind of like a disconnect between ourselves and these stereotypes or tropes that we have going on in our heads. And it's really difficult to kind of come to terms with this in many ways. And really, I think the answer to this is education and taking the time to learn more about autism and how it affects us in our own lives. Next up, perfectionism and the need to be productive. And I think perfectionism is so common in both autistic people and ADHD people, and it again is a form of self-sabotage because our inner critic just won't let us have any peace from ourselves. And this is something that I certainly really struggle with. I just have this innate need to be always producing something. So at the end of the day, if I haven't been productive in the ways that my brain has almost ordered me to be in the morning, I feel really disappointed in myself and really let down, and I just feel like I've wasted an opportunity to do something and do something of value. But of course, this is really counterproductive because we need rest as well. We need respite, and we need a opportunity just to recalibrate and if we're not allowing our brain to do this, this of course is going to lead to burnout. And this is why burnout is just so common in autistic and AuDHD people. It's, yeah, just an innate desire and an innate need just to keep going and keep going and keep going. And it is utterly exhausting. Next up, comparing ourselves to others. I don't know about you, but I've, gosh, done this consistently throughout my life. I've just not felt as good or as able as other people. I just have looked on in awe as other people I've known who, that seemingly have been able to glide through life, and I don't doubt they've had their own difficulties to deal with. But of course, when you're autistic or ADHD, you can have many additional challenges that neurotypical people just don't have to deal with. And the best way that I can describe it is that I've often felt like a kind of second class citizen. So, yeah, it's been very difficult to deal with at times, to feel like a fully functional human being. And it's taken me a long time to finally figure out I'm just different to other people, I'm not lesser than them. And I've kind of learned this through my artwork, believe it or not. And I think because I started posting my kind of clay work around 10 years ago on social media, you can't help but compare your artwork to other artists who, in very many instances, are doing phenomenal things. They're so talented, and it almost makes you want to stop posting your own art because you think, I cannot compare to these artists. But it's taken me some time to figure out, and actually with the help of going to art school, that I'm not better, I'm not lesser than other artists, I'm just different to them. And my artwork looks different to their artwork because we're different artists. So I've been able to apply this almost to my personality as well. I'm not lesser than other people, I'm not better than other people, I'm just different to other people. Next up is people pleasing, and this again is really common in autistic people and ADHD people, but it is an act of self-sabotage because we're not allowing our full selves to come to the fore. It's almost like we're just too preoccupied in presenting this curated version of ourselves, this masked version of ourselves. And of course, that is hugely exhausting and can play havoc with your own mental health on a longer term basis. Next up is executive function, and executive function is really all about how we function as human beings. It's how our brains kind of tell us how to do stuff and when to do stuff. And of course, autistic people and very many ADHD people have issues with executive function, and this could be in the form of time management. For instance, if we're thinking about self-sabotage, we're just not able to deliver things in a timely manner very often, and this could lead to difficulties around meeting deadlines at work. So as a result of that, or as a consequence of that, we feel like we're letting other people down. So this can be just really difficult to cope with. So, as I said at the beginning of this video, I've been really thinking about my ADHD diagnosis and what specific traits really match up with ADHD. And of course, my traits are still informed by being autistic. So I do think there is a balance between the two at times. So I just wanted to talk about acts of self-sabotage in my life. So firstly, employment. I made a video some time ago now on how I've had over 50 jobs in my life, and it's been really difficult. I've had real issues with employments for a whole number of reasons, but through my ADHD diagnosis, I can now see how some of it is kind of making sense in terms of having an ADHD brain. And I think I had a real issue, or I don't think I know, I had a real issue with feeling like I was stagnating in a job. I felt that once I kind of got my proverbial feet under my desk and I kind of knew the ins and outs of the job, that I just was no longer interested, and I just wanted something new, something that just felt like a whole new experience. And of course, very many ADHD people feel like this. And yeah, this has been to my own detriment because I've just never felt that I've been able to settle in a job. And of course, I'd have all of these social challenges on top of this, which I think are more attributed to my autism or my experience of being autistic. But yeah, I'd get to the point in a job where I would even hate the travel to get to the job or the walk to the workplace, because it just felt like I was walking into a gloom, is the best way that I can describe it. I just really hated doing the same thing every day, which, yeah, it's been really interesting to reflect on, because I would say that since perimenopause, my autistic traits have really ramped up. So these days, I much prefer routine and sameness, which could be the safety of being at home as well, because through chronic illness or disability, really, I have to be at home all the time. So there's no doubt a sense of security within that. But certainly when I was younger, I was, yeah, crave novelty far more than I do now. So once I felt that I was bored with a job, I would then go through a process of just applying for other jobs, anything that kind of took my interest, I'd apply for. And what I didn't kind of pick up on at the time was that I would be applying for basically identikit jobs. So I'd move from one job into a very similar job, and I never kind of learned that I was repeating the same behaviour all the time. So it was never to, yeah, go on and try something new. I just felt that I had to keep doing the same thing essentially because I knew what I was doing. So yeah, it was very difficult to deal with, and I used to get just so frustrated at myself that I just wasn't able to settle in the same way that other people were doing. And of course, through this, I would miss out on opportunities for, I don't know, getting paid more or promotion, because I would just have this innate need to keep moving on. And of course, this is a real act of self sabotage. And occasionally, I would go for jobs that were kind of more senior. I remember going for this kind of, I don't know, executive kind of job in a university, and I was clearly out of my depth. And within 2 days, I left because I just didn't even understand what people were talking about, because it was a heavy use of jargon going on, or industry jargon, and I just didn't know what they were talking about. So even on the rare occasions that I would apply for jobs that were at a senior level, I just couldn't do them. So it just felt like I was lost. And also, I would go through agencies really quickly as well. So I worked in a number of temp jobs. So that meant going back to the same agency time and time again to get new assignments. And I'd often leave assignments because I wasn't comfortable. And of course, these agencies would get fed up of me as an employee or a representative of theirs because I was kind of too flaky. So yeah, it meant that I had to jump agency a few times because they just didn't want to give me assignments anymore, and in hindsight, I don't blame them. Self-sabotage has been really evident in terms of my education as well. And I'm thinking more along the lines of higher education. So when I left school, or a year after I left school, I did a arts diploma course, but I left halfway through, and that was really because of issues at home. So it wasn't really self-sabotage, but I was so keen to get back to my studies through my whole adult life, and I just had, wow, almost like a special interest in constantly applying for arts courses, and I mean either HND courses or degree courses. So very often I'd apply for a course, I'd go to the interview and get accepted onto the course, and each and every time I would talk myself out of actually doing the course because I just felt that I wasn't worthy, I wasn't talented enough, or the logistics of actually starting the course were just too difficult to navigate. So it would mean that I would probably have to go and live somewhere else. So I would just go through all the cons essentially of having to move somewhere, and it just felt too overwhelming. So I couldn't do it until my mid-30s actually, where I did actually find a HND course that was quite local to me, and I then went on to do a degree as well. But yeah, I had to really talk myself into doing these courses because I still had all of these voices going on in my head saying that, you know, you're not good enough. Why are you even thinking of doing this in your 30s? You should be getting on with your career at this age. So it was really difficult to quieten down this, inner critic, really. And I'm going to put drinking in here as well because although I've really relied on it as a crutch for all of my social activities, it's really led to self-sabotage in many instances because essentially I would drink too much, and I was just a real binge drinker when I'd go out, and I'd get to the point where I just wouldn't even know what I'd said to people. So I would wake up with the fear the following morning, and I've spoken about the fear a few times now, but if you don't know what the fear is, it's essentially just not knowing what you've said the night before, and you're absolutely panicking about if you've offended anybody, if you behaved way too erratically, or if you just presented a version of yourself that just wasn't in any way representative of who you are or who I am. So it was really difficult to cope with, and I'd go through bouts of depression as a result, really, because I just would struggle so much with this dread, this absolute dread of what I'd say to other people, and I'd never learn from this behaviour because the following weekend I'd go out and do all the same stuff again, and again it would lead to the fear. And I do think in hindsight this was a real act of self-sabotage in many ways. So I've given just a few examples of self-sabotage or self-sabotage behaviours in this video, but of course there are very many more. And I'd love to hear your acts of self-sabotage as well, because as I say, it's not really something that I've seen a whole lot of discussion about on YouTube, but yeah, it's been a big one for me, I have to say. So yeah, leave your thoughts, opinions and experiences down below, and thanks for watching. Give it a like if you got this far, and I'll see you again soon.